Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 5, Chapter 5, Text number 1. Rishabha Uvacha Nayam Deha Deho Deha Bhajam Nruloke Kashtan Kaman Harhate Vidbhujamye Tapo Divyam Putrakayena Sattvam Shuddhyedyasmad Brahma Saukyam Tvanantam. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Lord Rishabhadeva told his sons, "My dear boys, of all the living entities who have accepted material bodies in this world, one who has been awarded this human form should not work hard day and night simply for sense gratification, which is available even for dogs and hogs that eat stool. One should engage in penance and austerity to attain the divine position of devotional service. By such activity, one's heart is purified, and when one attains this position, he attains eternal blissful life, which is transcendental to material happiness and which continues forever." Purport by Srila Prabhupada. In this verse, Lord Rishabhadeva tells his sons about the importance of human life. The word Dehabhak refers to anyone who accepts a material body, but the living entity who is awarded the human form must act differently from animals. Animals like dogs and hogs enjoy sense gratification by eating stool. After undergoing severe hardships all day, human beings are trying to enjoy themselves at night by eating, drinking, having sex, and sleeping. At the same time, they have to properly defend themselves. However, this is not human civilization. Human life means voluntarily practicing suffering for the advancement of spiritual life. There is, of course, suffering in the lives of animals and plants, which are suffering due to their past misdeeds. However, human beings should voluntarily accept suffering in the form of austerities and penances in order to attain the divine life. After attaining the divine life, one can enjoy happiness eternally. After all, every living entity is trying to enjoy happiness. But as long as one is engaged in a material body, he has to suffer different kinds of misery. A higher sense is present in the human form. We should act according to superior advice in order to attain eternal happiness and go back to Godhead. It is significant in this verse that the government and the natural guardian, the father, should educate subordinates and raise them to Krishna consciousness. Devoid of Krishna consciousness, every living being suffers in this cycle of birth and death perpetually. To relieve them from this bondage and enable them to become blissful and happy, Bhakti Yoga should be taught. A foolish civilization neglects to teach people how to rise to the platform of Bhakti Yoga. Without Krishna consciousness, a person is no better than a hog or dog. The instructions of Rishabhadeva are very essential at the present moment. People are being educated and trained to work very hard for sense gratification, and there is no sublime aim in life. A man travels to earn his livelihood leaving home early in the morning, catching a local train, and being packed in a compartment. He has to stand for an hour or two in order to reach his place of business. Then again he takes a bus to get to the office. At the office he works hard from 9 to 5. Then he takes 2 or 3 hours to return home. After eating, he has sex and goes to sleep. For all this hardship, his only happiness is a little sex. Yan maitunadi gruhamedi sukham hi tucham. Rishabhadeva clearly states that human life is not meant for this kind of existence, which is enjoyed even by dogs and hogs. Indeed, dogs and hogs do not have to work so hard for sex. A human being should try to live in a different way and should not try to imitate dogs and hogs. The alternative is mentioned. Human life is meant for tapasya, austerity and penance. By tapasya, one can get out of the material clutches. When one is situated in Krishna consciousness, devotional service, his happiness is guaranteed eternally. By taking to bhakti yoga, devotional service, one's existence is purified. The living entity is seeking happiness life after life, but he can make a solution to all his problems simply by practicing bhakti yoga. Then he immediately becomes eligible to return home, back to Godhead, as confirmed in Bhagavad Gita 4.9. Janma karma chame divyam evam yo veti tattvataha tyaktva deham punarjanma naiti mameti sorjuna. One who knows the transcendental nature of my appearance and activities does not, upon leaving the body, take his birth again in this material world, but attains my eternal abode, O Arjuna. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purport. So in the new chapter, we will be reading Lord Rishabhadeva's teachings. And in the earlier summary that we read, Srila Prabhupada says, in the teachings of Rishabhadeva, Bhagavata Dharma is described. That is why these instructions are special and it has become part of Srimad Bhagavatam. What is this Bhagavata Dharma? So Prabhupada has also nicely described. Bhagavata Dharma, generally dharma, religious principles, are society is interested in religious principles for two reasons. One, for mitigation of material misery, and a higher principle is to seek liberation. So one is to mitigate material miseries and then to go and attain liberation. But Bhagavata Dharma transcends both these principles. So what is it that Bhagavad Dharma is presenting? Something that is beyond mitigation of miseries and even liberation. And that is religious principles in devotional service. How to attain a spiritual platform, how to revive our relation with the Supreme, and how to act in that relationship, and how to go back to Godhead with right qualifications. This is Bhagavat Dharma. And hence this Bhagavat Dharma transcends the other two aspects of Dharma. Mitigation of material miseries and acquiring some sensual pleasure, that is karma kanda. Liberation is Jnana Kanda. Bhagavad Dharma goes beyond Karma Kanda and Jnana Kanda, which is devotional service. So, this is Bhagavad Dharma, and Rishabhadeva brings that out. And how that develops is the whole chapter. We will read little by little. And today's verse, Rishabhadeva, and Prabhupada writes, this verse is very relevant at the moment. In our present society, it is relevant. Why is Prabhupada saying it is relevant at the present society? In our present society, we will see that. Na ayam dehaha dehabhajam ruloke kashtan kaman arhate vidbujamye. Generally, parents have all told us, I'm sure all of us have experienced this, work hard, study well, get a good job, so that you will have good life. But Rishabhadeva is saying the opposite. Don't work hard to have just material good life. And to convey this strongly, he is saying, what is that enjoyment that you are aspiring? That is equivalent to the same pleasure of Vitbhujam. Vit means stool. Bhujam means very strong. The example Father Rishabhadeva is using to his sons, very strong. Don't work hard simply to enjoy your senses, enjoy the standard of pleasure that's already available. That is in the lives of lowly entities like Vitbhujam. Vitbhujam, dogs and hogs. So this is a very unusual instruction Father giving to the son. But this understanding is not there in our present human society. Everyone is encouraged to work hard. Dream big. Attain big things. You see? And that's highly celebrated. That's why one of the things that happens to devotees who take to Krishna consciousness, it happened to all of us, especially when we were young, when we were still in college. When we started reading Srila Prabhupada's books at some point, gradually we shut off the fuel in our material life. So people started wondering, hey, what happened? So, this is Bhagavad Dharma. Not just work hard, act piously. Don't act impiously. That also our parents told us. Most of our parents, some parents of course were Vaishnavas and told their children, like Rishabhadeva also. But I am saying generally. So in modern society, Prabhupada has used another expression. There is no understanding, there is no sublime purpose to human life. People have some purpose. I must create impact in the society and all such things. But no sublime impact. They don't have any idea of creating a sublime impact. We also want to create an impact, but not another mundane impact. We want to create a sublime impact. So, Rishabhadeva is teaching this to his son. Now one may think that he has used the word kashtan. Kashtan means hard work, taking up hard endeavors. Kaman arhate. Kashtan kaman, for the sake of sense gratification. That kaman arhate vidbujam ye. That pleasure you are seeking is the standard of the pleasure of vidbujam. So, what is Rishabhadeva saying? Don't work hard, be lazy? No, tapaha. Tapaha means ready to take hard work, ready to do hard work, ready to take inconvenience to the body for divyam, for a sublime purpose. Tapo divyam putrakaha. He's advising his sons, my dear sons, tapo divyam. I don't mistake me when I say don't do hard work, become lazy. No, tapo divyam. Human life is meant for tapasya. Tapo divyam putraka yena, by which, what is the advantage of that tapasya? Sattvam shuddhye. Our heart is purified. Our existence is purified. Sattvam has both sense. Prabhupada has explained in both senses in the purport. Sattvam is our heart, because we exist from our heart, our consciousness. Sattvam. And also sattvam in the sense of our very existence. Sattvam shuddhyet. One can purify one's existence. And what is the advantage of that? Sattvam shuddhyet yasmat brahma saukyam. One will be able to experience brahma sukha, spiritual happiness. The qualification for experiencing spiritual happiness is sattvam shuddha. Shuddha, purification of our existence, of our heart, of our consciousness. Sattvam shuddhyet yasmat, from which brahma saukyam. So what is the advantage of brahma saukyam? How is it different from vidbhuja sukha? This is anantam, is eternal. Whereas vidbhuja sukha, that will simply entangle the living entity in this body and continue to experience the miseries of birth, death, old age and disease, on and on, life after life. So this is the strong instruction of Rishabhadeva, very revolutionary. Don't work hard simply for sense gratification, but accept all kinds of austerities for purification of the consciousness, because purification of consciousness enables us to experience Brahma Sukha, which is Anantam. Brahma Sukha means spiritual happiness. Brahma here means spiritual happiness. Brahma Sukha should not be mistaken to mean just impersonal Brahman. The word Brahma has different meanings according to different context. Here Brahma Sukham, if we see further instructions of Rishabhadeva, he is not advising them on impersonal happiness. It is about transcendental happiness of bhakti. Divyam, tapo divyam putraka ena. Yasma ena sattvam shuddhyet yasmat brahma saukyam tvanantam. And Prabhupada has also pointed out in the purport, Rishabhadeva was speaking this to his sons And we also read in the last verse of the previous chapter, not only his sons were there, but even the common citizens of the kingdom were also hearing this. So Prabhupada is saying, it is significant in this verse that the government and the natural guardian, the father, should educate subordinates and raise them to Krishna consciousness. Rishabhadeva was speaking this not only in the capacity as the father of the 100 sons, he was also speaking in the capacity of the king of so many praja. And he was referring to all of them, advising all of them on these instructions. We must work hard, not for sense gratification, but we must have a transcendental goal in life, a transcendental purpose in life. And when we don't have a transcendental purpose, we will misunderstand what this life is meant for, and we will create a mess of all our activities in this life. It's very interesting. Yesterday we were discussing in some other situation. Arjuna was in the battle of Kurukshetra, was in a very perplexing situation in his practical life. Right? He became confused whether he should fight or not. He saw his own cousins, his teachers, his grandfather assembled to fight, and he could identify all of them. Oh, they're all, after all, my kinsmen. And should I fight this fratricidal war just for winning a kingdom and to enjoy the kingdom? Should I do that? And he became perplexed, and by good fortune he had Krishna as his charioteer, and he began to ask questions to him. And what does Krishna do? Krishna did not want to give a material analysis of whether he should do this or that. Instead, he started explaining to him who he is, who the living entity is, and what is this Prakriti material world all about? Who is in control of all these things? What is the purpose of all this? And when he gave him that big picture, that immediately solved his micro problem in his micro world also. It's not that it was a philosophical discourse irrelevant to, I am asking you whether I should fight this war or not, whether I should shoot my arrows or not. You are telling me something about soul and Prakriti and nature and the controller of all that. No. If we have a clear understanding about that, we will know how to act in this world. That is the sublime perspective that Krishna presents to Arjuna, and which is very relevant even in our present life. It is relevant to us individually, and it is relevant to the society at large. If this transcendental understanding, if this transcendental perspective is not there, it will bring down the human consciousness to animal consciousness, and in animal consciousness you cannot have peace. When somebody approached Srila Prabhupada many times, when they would talk about peace and harmony in the world, Prabhupada would ask them, if you have a few cats and dogs, if you have a bunch of cats and put them in a cage and tell them, all of you be happy and peaceful, they'll be fighting with each other. There can't be peace. So if we keep human society at the level of consciousness of animals, there will be wars, there will be scandals, there will be crime. These things will continue to happen unless the human society is infused with a sublime purpose, mission, and goal in life. This is the perspective of the Srimad Bhagavatam. This is how Rishabhadeva is saying, as a government, as a king, as a leader, public leader, he's feeling that this is the message I must deliver to my kingdom, to my praja. So that's how Prabhupada is saying that this message is relevant at this point in time in our human society. And Srila Prabhupada is describing a typical man, how he works so hard. It looks like Srila Prabhupada is envisioning what happens in Mumbai city. It's very common in Mumbai city. Not only in Mumbai city, Prabhupada also referred to such things. Even in big cities like New York, people live far away from the city because it's very expensive. And they take a train, travel for 1 hour, 1.5 hours, 2 hours. And Prabhupada is using the word local train, which is very typical of Mumbai. And it's so crowded, you have to stand for 2 hours. And then after you reach the station, you have to take another bus for a short distance. And then reach the office and work hard from 9 o'clock to 5 o'clock. And after working so hard, again return home in the same way, crowded trains. And after going home, eat, sleep, and have sex, and again rise. What is this life? Is this human life? Is this the way we should spend our life? Maybe the varied details may vary. It may not be a local train, it may be a metro, it may not be 1 hour, it may be half an hour because metro travels far, whatever. But the details are different. And in fact, the train and all those things have been made faster so that you don't work 9 to 5, but you work from 8 to 6 or 7. Something like that. You work even longer. So at the sum and substance is work hard for some sense pleasure, which animals are also having. See, it's important. This is a very important point. Srila Prabhupada mentions, Rishabhadeva is mentioning, Bhagavatam is mentioning. A person has to be judged by the standard of enjoyment he seeks. That's a measure of development of an individual. What he seeks, what attracts him, what engages him, what is irresistible for him, what is he drawn by, that is the measure of an individual. If somebody is drawn by, irresistibly attracted to sense pleasures, then what do we conclude about this standard of his consciousness? Because ultimately we all live in our consciousness. It's our consciousness level of our existence. So what are we drawn to? We may dress up very nicely in suit and boot and tie and this and that and modern attire and all those things. But what are we drawn to? That is a measure of an individual. And kaman arhate vidbhujamye. If you are drawn to the same things that vidbhujam, animals like dogs and hogs are attracted to, what have we done with our consciousness in our life after all the hard work? This is the strong point that Srimad Bhagavatam is pointing out, and Rishabhadeva sets the scene right from the first verse. That transcendental purpose of life, transcendental meaning of life should be driving us. That's the good fortune we have. Srila Prabhupada has given us this knowledge. And when we rise up early in the morning, we shed our sleep and immediately we should think there is a transcendental purpose in my life. And that transcendental purpose can be fulfilled by first step, Sattvam Shuddhye. And that's how Chaitanya Mahaprabhu presents the Sankirtana movement, Cheto Darpana Marjanam. You see how all of them are interlinked. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's first instruction, first benefit of chanting the holy names of Krishna is it cleanses the consciousness of a living entity. Chetodarpa, the first verse, is a series of description of the effects of chanting Hare Krishna. If you see that carefully, another time we will talk about it. So it begins with Chetodarpanamarjanam. And that is what Rishabhadeva is saying, because that is Shuddham Sattvam Shuddhyet Tasmat Yasmat Brahma Saukyam Tvanantam, by which what happens? We become eligible for spiritual pleasure. We'll stop here. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki, Srila Prabhupada ki.